Welcome back to Security on Happy Hour, where we bring together a group of security professionals and naturally cheery folks to discuss topics in the cybersecurity community, share knowledge, learn, teach, and exchange ideas. Today, my co-hosts, Lisa Bradley, Katie Noble, Crob, and I are going to talk about crowdsourced testing, vulnerability disclosure programs, and bug bounty programs. We will compare these and help determine when you are ready to level up. We have a special guest today, April Melle, on to talk to us about her experience with crowdsourced testing. April is a technical program manager leading a crowdsourced security vulnerability response program. She has more than 10 years of security and risk management experience in the retail, financial, and technology industries. She enjoys building and implementing new processes and programs, especially those supporting vulnerability management. Welcome to the show, April. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And maybe we could start off with something for our audience, because we have, all different kinds of people that are coming to join and listen to the call. What is a crowdsourced platform?
So a crowdsource security, I guess to start, a crowdsource security program or testing program is one where you're utilizing the crowd of security researchers to help you identify security vulnerabilities. And then a platform is wherever your intake of those vulnerabilities is, so the submissions. So that could be a platform that you've built yourself in-house. It could be a platform that's hosted by a third-party vendor. So there's lots of different options for that.
What does it mean with the, like, when we say crowdsource, like what does that emphasize? Like, what is the point of it?
The point, I get where you're going with this. So I don't think you could ever have a security team that's big enough to cover everything that needs to be covered, right? It doesn't matter how big your company is, how many employees you have, it's just not enough to cover your entire attack surface, right? So by utilizing this crowd, you have thousands and thousands, if not more, maybe millions. Who knows how many people are out there doing this, right? It's a lot. All of these people who are now acting as a kind of third party for you. So they're helping you identify the vulnerabilities that your internal team might not have the bandwidth to look for, or sometimes the knowledge to look for. Some of these researchers have really, really specialized skill sets that help them identify these vulnerabilities, and you might not have that specific skill set in your organization.
Right. I feel like this has been an ongoing trend, right? Where we're seeing more and more and more people do this, but like, why? I guess why do we trust the crowd? Are we happy with the crowd? Are they good people usually?
Hopefully, yeah. Now, for the most part, I think so. Yeah, I think the majority of the crowd just want to help. They want to see companies be more secure. They want to see these things fixed. So totally, I would say majority, 100% good guys.
So I counter that with, does it matter?
Good point.
Probably not. I just was asking.
Doesn't matter. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, do I really care about their intention? No. I care about the quality of the proof of concept that they submit. If it's a real problem, I don't care about the quality of the human being on the other end. I care about the tech.
Right, or what their intentions were. You're right.
So when we talk about the platform, that's like, do you feel like the platform helps make sure that the quality is better?
Yeah,
of what we get?
Especially if it puts some structure around it. So you're not just, so say you're taking in submissions via email, right? There's no template. There's nothing for the submitter to follow. They're just kind of giving you whatever they think is the right information. But if you're using a platform of some sort, whatever it is, if it's a form or an actual vendor platform, there's a set guidelines and fields and types of information that they need to submit. So it's putting standardization around it. It's giving them some guidelines to follow. So yeah, I think it definitely helps with the quality of the reports.
But it also seems like this is a way for companies to scale, right? When you don't have the funds to be able to hire, well, I guess there's two parts, right? You don't have the funds to hire a large group of people that will basically test your products for you, right? You can't afford the payroll. But the other aspect is you get the diversity of thinking. You get these different minds coming and attacking your product in a less structured way, structured that in a structure that you didn't form.
Right.
Do you feel like these like replace like typical pen testing, or is it more of an addition to?
You just read my mind. Yeah, I think a lot of people compare it to a pen test because it's really similar. It is like you're with a bug bounty program, especially, you're saying, here's this specific target I want tested, go test it. So same with a pen test, right? But with a pen test, you have your 1 or 2 testers and you're limited to their skill set. But with a crowdsourced program, whatever kind it is, you have unlimited amounts of researchers and their skill sets. So it's similar, but the results that you get out of a pen test versus a crowdsourced program are very, very, very different.
And in your company, I mean, have you seen like that it's beneficial so far of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So we started, and I guess we haven't really talked about difference between VDP, Vulnerability Disclosure Program, and a bug bounty program. They're both types of crowdsourced security programs. The biggest difference, I would say, is that a bug bounty program is incentivized. So you're asking money, right? You're asking the researchers to test and look for vulnerabilities on a specific target. And if they find valid vulnerabilities, then you're giving them something of monetary value. So usually just cash rewards, right? A vulnerability disclosure program is more of just a more wide open. If you see something that you think is a security issue on an asset or a product or anything that my company owns or develops, then we want you to submit it to us and tell us about it here. So we do both. We started out with the VDP, so the non-monetary reward program. And that was, Crob, you're raising your hand because you have a question, or you just waving? Sure, go ahead.
Finish your thought though, please. I was queuing up.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So the VDP was extremely beneficial for us because there wasn't a lot of, I guess there wasn't a centralized way for us to receive those reports at the time. So it created that structure that I mentioned earlier. It made it a lot easier for us to manage without hiring a ton of additional resources internally. So that benefit was there immediately. And then we eventually scaled up to a bug bounty program where we felt we were comfortable. We were ready for that additional scrutiny in certain areas, I guess. And we were ready to pony up the money and pay for the work the researchers were doing. And we saw additional benefits with that, 1,000,000 times what we were expecting. Everybody extremely, extremely happy. Everyone's so impressed, especially compared to the pen tests. We had people who were saying, well, I'm doing a pen test every year, so I really don't think I need to do anything extra. And then at the end of whatever program we were running, they said, oh, wow, well, I was wrong. There were some things that were missed, and this program brought those to light. So all around, huge benefits.
Crob, what was your
remember?
question?
Yeah, do you remember your question? Sorry, I
I'm curious what the difference between your VDP program is and a project or product having a defined security intake process and their own kind of defect tracking?
Yeah. So I think the VDP is more of just like a catch-all for anything. So doesn't matter if it's really a product, a website, whatever it is, it should just be all encompassing. So if you find a vulnerability on any of those said things, any asset that belongs to my company, tell me. And then I think in addition to that, you need that internal tracking for anything that comes in through that program. So like you said, the product defect process, whatever that is, that needs to be downstream from the intake point at the VDP. So
It just feels like this is something that product security teams should have in place, or organizations should have in place.
totally.
Is that not what you're finding?
But
Yes.
well, I think the majority of people, well, a lot of people in the industry have some form of a VDP, right? We just maybe don't call it. If you have
Bug to the
secure
side.
ad or PCERT ad, an email, and you email it in, it's still a form of a VDP. I think that it's more just a formalized name that some of the platforms out there have officially called it a name.
Yeah.
Where, but I think like a lot of teams already have this. It's just, are you doing it as an email, or are you utilizing some form of a platform to do it, which the platform has, has some benefits. Like for me, when we just use an email address, we also use that email address internally too. And so it's a lot of emails. And then, when you're working with researchers, you want to make sure you're staying on the ball to get back to them, and that you're not, missing an email or something. And having a platform, it's more regulated and clean, and all that. I think that's the benefit, like that we've seen a little bit.
Yeah. And it doesn't, like Lisa, like you said, it doesn't have to be a platform. Whatever you wanted, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a page on your website that says, if you find a vulnerability, email us here, right? It can be as easy as that. You really just want it to be something that researchers can easily find. So if somebody Googles your company name and vulnerability, you want that to come up. So you don't want them to be poking around on Google for more than a few minutes, because they might give up, not tell you about it at all. They might go to Twitter and start posting about it there, which nobody wants
We've
to
all
deal with that.
had.
Nope.
No fun.
So that's the main goal, just an easy.
Or an email to our, the owner of the company.
Right.
That's always fun too.
Right. Yeah, you don't want none of that. So make it easy to find whatever it is. If it's a platform or just an email address, let them know.
Okay, so a VDP is a non-paid type of program, and then the
Right.
bug bounty is the paid program. And then what is this? Sometimes I hear people telling me about, well, we have a private bug bounty or something like that. What is that? What is the difference of what's a private, like a private program, and how do you use them, and how, like, are there different researchers than in the private program, or how does that work?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for just 1 second? I'm sorry to
Sure.
interrupt, but really, isn't a VDP sort of the premise for a bug bounty program? I mean, you really have to have a vulnerability disclosure program in order to build into that
Yes.
bug bounty program, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to, I mean, you could, I guess, start with a bug bounty program. I don't know why you would want to. It probably wouldn't go very well.
Many have failed doing that.
I'm sure.
And they've
Yeah.
burned down in flames, and it's not a good
Not
a
pretty.
good optic. No.
Yeah. So yeah, before you do anything, you definitely need some sort of a VDP before you even think about a bug bounty program.
It's sort of a maturity item. So VDP is an overall toolkit, and bug bounty is one of the tools in the toolkit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I interrupted.
No,
okay.
no, that's okay. So private versus public, right, Lisa?
Yep.
So private bug bounty program, which is usually where most people start, is where you just have a few or whatever the number is, it can be whatever you want. It's totally customizable. You can invite 5 researchers, you can invite 100, whatever it is. You're inviting certain researchers to participate in the program. So it's invite only, it's not open to the public. So that has its benefits in the sense that you can control the number of researchers. So you're kind of controlling the submission volume. So if you only have 5 researchers, you're going to get less submissions than you would if you had 100 or 500. So it's a nice way to start out small and see how it works, what works for you. You can make adjustments before you grow the program. So I would say the more mature version of that would be a public bug bounty. So that's where it's very similar to a VDP in the sense that it's open to the public. So anybody can submit a vulnerability report to a public bug bounty program and potentially, if it's a valid report, get paid for the submission. So I think when you start a public bug bounty program, the biggest challenge is probably the submission volume, because once you start paying for things, obviously people are going to pay a lot of attention. So I think going from the private program, where it's a more managed and smaller group of researchers, to a public program, depending on what your scope is probably very overwhelming to start with, for sure.
Yeah, because I think like some people are scared, like they're like, oh my goodness, what is it going to be? Can we handle the intake? And all of a sudden we're going to have more issues, and how are we going to know about them and handle them? And then do we trust the program? Because I think like when you're telling an exec that you're going to pay people that you don't even know, like they probably are like, oh my God, this is so scary. So a private program is a good way to maybe ease them into it. And when you're more selective of the researchers, the platform that you're using is bringing in their more trusted researchers. So like you don't worry about them potentially 0-daying you because they know about the programs, they want to get paid. So it's a better experience to start off, like getting your feet wet, right?
Yeah, exactly. You work with people that you already have a relationship with and you trust. So there's no surprises, hopefully.
I mean, but if you're using a platform, do you feel that there are some researchers that are going to say, hey, I don't want to use that platform at all? Like I was used to emailing you, and now you're going to make me go through this other platform. Do you ever see that there's restrictions of that?
Probably. I mean, yes, but so few, like out of probably thousands of reports that I've seen over the past few years, maybe a handful of people said, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to email you. So I think for the most part, the researcher community really, really likes these platforms. It kind of gives them a centralized location to.
And a point system, right? Some of them have like a point system.
Yeah, right, exactly. So even if you're not getting paid, you can still get like kudos points on a leaderboard. So it's kind of gamified for them.
Right.
April, we
Yeah.
mentioned paid a couple of times. We talked about paying people for bounties. Is money the only way that you can reward researchers?
No. So it's probably what they prefer, but no, you can anything with a monetary value. So t-shirts, swag, anything, laptops, right? Whatever it is. But anything, any program that you have that incentivized reward at the end. So whether it's money or an item, a product, then that's
or
when
acknowledgement, right? I guess, right? That's another way to reward them is through the acknowledgement.
Right, acknowledgement. Yep.
Oh, yeah, Katie,
Katie, go ahead.
So we have issues with some of our trying to pay some of our academic researchers, and so we work very closely and we get a lot of really good quality stuff with our academic researchers, and it's hard to pay them sometimes because their academic institution may have a code that doesn't allow them to receive payment, or they have an academic institution where even if you did pay the institution, it would go to like the institution's overall beautification fund, and so that department never even gets the money at all, and so the money is not really an incentive to them. But things like if our engineers bless off on their paper, that's something that's really, really exciting to them, because then they can go to conferences and be like, X company said we were right. And that's kind of like, it's a non-paid way to incentivize security research and things like that. Or we've also had experiences where if we bring them into the company and say, show me what you did, they really love that too.
Ooh, and that's a good learning experience for people inside the company too.
Yeah, so it doesn't always have
That's
to
very
be
cool. Just
payments. Yeah, hard cash. It can
right.
sometimes be other
Yep.
things
It's just
too.
Well, what about no? When you
something
talk about
incentive.
people in the companies, right? So Katie, I know this is your space too. So like, we often get asked about like, can internal users get rewarded for finding bugs and go through the bug bounty? But most of the programs I ever seen don't say that you can't be an employee of that to get it. So like, is that common? I mean, it seems weird to pay yourself especially if you were the one who created the bug in the first place.
No, not necessarily. You may work in an entirely different department. Like you may
Right,
have
so
absolutely no
maybe.
contact on that at all. And like, so this is a very philosophical kind of question, because like we don't look terribly deeply into who people are. And especially if, I mean, we have a policy, the company I'm at, we have a policy where if you're an internal employee, you're not really supposed to be submitting to the bug bounty program. You should report that internally, and we probably won't, pay you for it. Goodness of your heart, goodness of the company. If we all succeed, we succeed together kind of deal. But and I think most companies kind of have that policy. But if you're in an entirely different department, maybe you do something totally different and you happen to find something on a weekend, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from creating a Gmail account, creating an account under a handle.
You're telling them how to cheat the system, but they legally have to say they're not an employee, right?
Yeah, but like, I mean, I'm not telling anybody how to do anything. If you're smart enough to find a security vulnerability, you saw that loophole a mile away.
Yeah, that's true.
I prefer for an internal associate to find the issue before it became a real escape.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
offer monetary compensation per se, but I am very proud when we have the largest percentage of findings of vulnerabilities attributed to our engineers and our staff.
Right. And I go back to that again. I don't care about the intention of the person who found it. I care about the tech, and I care about the proof of concept, and I care about fixing the problem. So I don't sit and go terribly deep into the motivation of the researcher.
Well, I guess I would care about the motivation of researchers just in general to make sure that we have a good grasp of what their motivations are, so the program could be more successful. But I mean, I guess if they're using a platform like this, they're probably doing it for those reasons, right? For the point system or for the money. But like you were saying, when you have academia, it's not about the money for them. So motivation is still important to know, and maybe you just need to make sure that your platform, whatever it is attracting all different, types of researchers, whether they're out for fame or money or points or academia, and being careful to make them all feel important in a way.
Yeah. And we're actually going to try.
Sorry, Josh
Okay,
looks like he was dying to say something about.
Sorry.
No, I was just what I was reflecting on was the complexity of all this. Sometimes I talk to folks and they have this idea that it's a matter of just switching gears. You go from creating a program to handle vulnerabilities, and then you create a VDP, and then you create a bug bounty program, and you publish it, and magically everything goes smoothly because you're getting all these vulnerabilities reported. There is so many elements to handling those vulnerabilities and the relationships with the researchers. There really are providing a service to the company that they're reporting the vulnerabilities to. And there should be a partnership between the researchers that are doing this work and the companies that are receiving them. And that takes building rapport and establishing trust and a reward that goes back and forth, whether it's financial or it's it's more academic, where you're rewarding them with a respect for the work that they've done. And so this is really a complicated work effort that happens when you set this up, and taking these baby steps along the way is really critical to the success of a program like this. And then recognizing that this is only one piece of your overall security program, right? It's like the finger of a hand. You've got to use that in conjunction with all of the other work that you're doing, your internal research,
all your SEL
website
activities.
yeah,
Yep.
right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, well, right, and I think that, well, you brought up a lot of good points, and it's sort of like, when do you do this? How do you trigger it? When do you know that you're mature enough to handle it? Because you really can screw it. You could screw it up if you don't do it right.
Mhm.
If you're not prepared for the influx, if you're not prepared to have the money. I mean, and speaking of money, where does the money come from? Like,
It's magic.
Is it magic? Like, who, so, is there advice? So maybe let's think of it this way, April, when you're going about this, like, what is the advice to know when you should get into this world, when you should get into bug bounty, how you should think about your money and getting the support to make sure that the program's successful? Like, I'm sure it just didn't happen overnight in your company. So what did you have to do to try to align all those different pieces?
Yeah. So like I said, have to start with the VDP no matter what. That just has to be the starting point. And it actually, it has, at least for us, it had a nice benefit in the sense that it kind of gave us some obvious places to start with bug bounty programs, because we knew where the researchers like to test, where they were already testing. So it was just kind of a nice way to pick out some obvious areas for some private bug bounty programs. But I would say we started extremely small with the bug bounty, private bug bounty program. So the first year, I think we only did maybe 2 private 30-day programs. That was it, just to say, okay, this is how it works. Here are the results. Here's what it costs. Here are the metrics. It also really, really helped to compare to recent pen tests, because that showed a completely different return on investment. And when you show that side by side, people are really like, wow, this is what you pay for. And these are the results between the two. They just kind of blew people's minds. So starting small is 100% the way to go. It shows the value. It helps to build trust in the program. And then once that trust is there and people see that it works, then hopefully the money comes a little bit easier. And the payment, at least I think you alluded to, the payment structure is a little bit difficult to figure out. And I think we started out with a structure that we thought was the right way to go, and it made total sense. So we said that for bug bounty programs, whoever owns the target, so whoever is essentially responsible for the vulnerability existing, is going to pay for the reward. So in theory, that makes sense, right? So once you start to expand your scope and you're dealing with lots of different target owners and lots of different budgets, it doesn't go so well. It's really tough to manage. So we learned pretty quickly that we were like the only one in our industry doing it that way. Everybody else, it's kind of centralized in security. So security just pays for everything. So we're going to be switching over to that model. Thank God, it'd be much easier. But that was a really good learning experience, because it gave some of those target owners visibility into what we were doing. So they saw the value and they understand what the program is and how it works. And now I think they appreciate more when we say, okay, now security is actually going to pay for the whole thing. So I don't think that they would have understood what that really meant to the same extent if we had just come in paying for everything at the beginning. So that's another hurdle that you have to get over. It's not so easy.
Yeah. So Katie was talking about, what's your favorite bug bounty story? I have to tell you, I'm going to tell you my start of when it wasn't a bug bounty, but in my first company I worked with in the P-Cert world, I had a person ask for a T-shirt. no less than 40 or 50 times that I had to finally just like stop like getting messages and had to ban them because the amount of time that they asked for a t-shirt where my company wasn't one to give out t-shirts, but like that was the old school days where a t-shirt was a big deal before, you know, the Bug Crowd and Hacker Ones of the world. Yes, Crow.
Did their report add value to your products and help you fix a problem?
No, it was very minimal on top of it. It was like a small web page little thing that our scanners were about to catch.
Punt
So
that to InfoSec. Let them deal with it.
I know. Oh well, yeah, I know.
C-cert, not P-cert.
Yeah. Katie, what's your favorite story? Because this is your world too. I know you gotta have one.
It's kind of
Well-
hard. Like, I'm not
well-
really
well-
quite sure.
Too many.
While Katie's
Josh.
thinking about that, though, I was just going to say, I think something that Crob said about did their report add value? It's a discussion that I have a lot with the people on my team that may feel like that some of the vulnerabilities that are reported by researchers are low-hanging fruit. They're very easy to find. And my argument to that, and well, they shouldn't get paid or this or that.
Why
My
didn't we
argument-
find
We
them?
should have found it first. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I say, right?
Why
If-
didn't you find it?
We should have found those. And they are doing us a favor by pointing out something that will affect our reputation. So yes, the report was valuable. It may seem insignificant to us because it's a well-known vulnerability, but shame on us for that vulnerability being in the product.
Right, and they stopped that embarrassment because
Yeah.
they found it, and then and it's before, you know, somebody publicly posted like, look at these idiots, they couldn't even find the simple, you know, sans 25 type of thing. Yeah.
Feedback as a gift.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Yeah.
And April, do you have any fun stories?
I think maybe not a story, but just the favorite thing that I learned and kind of unexpectedly was as we were doing all of these various different programs, the private programs, we kind of developed like a following of researchers who really, really, really loved the programs, always wanted to know when our company was doing another one, and they kind of followed us through the entire process. So we developed a really nice relationship with these researchers. We went to them for feedback on the programs. They were happy to give it. So it was unexpected, but a really nice benefit to have that additional relationship built based off of it.
Yeah. So I know we're nearing our end. I actually have one more type of question because I know, Josh, you were the ones who helped start the program here.
About Katie's story.
Oh, Katie. Well, she was pausing. Do you have your story, Katie?
Too many.
Did you think of one? No.
So it's kind of hard because like I mean, I have all the horror stories if you want any of those, but you know, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was thinking the horror stories too, and that the one thing about the horror stories though is there are a lot of researchers that will not be happy with you know your VDP or your bug bounty program, and I can say this in hindsight. At the moment, I was not feeling this way, but in hindsight, I really value those researchers because they keep you on your toes. They keep you honest about what you're doing, and it's not that we were, you know, in those cases we were approaching things in a dishonest way. It was more about they were challenging us to be better than we were, and there is a laundry list of situations that we were in where it was very frustrating. But I feel you know that's some of the better stories to have. But I won't get into details or name names.
I've never seen Josh angry ever. In the years that I've known him, I've never seen him angry, except one time on a phone call where I thought he might lose his mind. And he starts saying things like, I'm about to circle the wagons. And I'm like, oh gosh, Josh. But even in those moments, it's a learning, you know,
Right.
and what
Yeah.
Josh is about challenging us to be better. I think that overwhelmingly the thing is like, one of my biggest triggers is when people say no without even like hearing you out. Like, I don't feel like I make unreasonable like asks. And so like I always think that we should get to yes, like build a plan to get to yes. Like, and so I appreciate when researchers bring me something that's new and novel, because it's like a treasure hunt and they're challenging me to be better tomorrow than I was today. And like sometimes it's hard to take that like blunt challenge and you're like, how, you know, who do you think you are? But then at the same time you have to back up and say like, that challenge makes me better and it makes my company better and it makes my product better and it makes the end user safer. And so I'll take it.
Mhm.
You sound like a great employee there.
Oh, let me tell you about setting up the US government's bug bounty program. I will tell you. It was
Yeah. Well, but that was my last thing that I was thinking of is it's like, what is your last advice? Because not everybody has a bug bounty type of program. So for somebody who was starting to do a bug bounty program, because Josh, you started yours, Katie, you started some, April, you started yours. Like what, what would you say was the biggest thing that you learned? It sounds like April, you were talking about the money and that's a big lesson learned, but is there anything else that you learned that you would have done differently or wish you would have known before you started it?
Luckily, no. I think I got so much advice from people before we started. First of all, I can't imagine being the first company or first person to try to do this. It must have been absolute nightmare. So I think we were really lucky in the sense that we had heard about all the mistakes and all the things not to do ahead of time, which was so helpful. So I would say talk to everybody that you can who's done this before. And now hopefully there's enough people out there who have. But I would say the number one thing that I think helped us was start smaller than you want to. It's no too small of a scope. It can be tiny and it's fine. Just start small and learn how it works before you grow it any bigger.
Yeah, Josh, what was yours? Because I know I've talked to you about this stuff in the past, and
Well,
I feel like you had some
actually,
good lessons learned.
yeah, it would have been in line with what April said, right? Start small, stay private for as long as you can. Learn to focus your bug bounty program, and listen to others. I think that's great advice. I mean, the fact that you got so much good advice going into this is it's golden, right? You can't. There is no book written on this. Maybe that's
Yeah.
not-
There should
It
be.
should be.
There should be, yeah.
Should be.
There was a lot of, I think, executive pressure to go public and go live, and then luckily we utilized people in the industry, and Josh, you were one of them when we were talking, just to say no, I'm pushing back, and I had to push back against a very senior exec to say I want to slow down, I want to do it right, I want to be prepared, which is not always there. And I know, so Katie helped start up a bug bounty group that's out there with a lot of people in the industry. Katie, if you want to talk about it for those in the industry that are listening that want to get in on the fun.
Shameless
Oh
plug.
no, Lisa broke the golden rule. The golden rule of bug bounty community of interest is like Fight Club.
Don't talk about it.
bug bounty community of interest.
Lisa's off the podcast.
I'm off the phone.
Kick her
Kick
to the
me
curb.
out.
So now there is a community of interest called the Bug Bounty Community of Interest. It's pretty self-explanatory. And we focus on helping each other figure out how to not have the same pitfalls that others have had. So how do we, so we talk about writing the book. There's no guidebook out there, but we're actually writing a guidebook on bug bounty norms and how to, things that you can do and what to expect and how to talk to people about bug bounty. A lot of times there are things like talking to your own management about the value of a bug bounty program. And trying to even explain to your own internal workings what the return on investment is. And sometimes it's nice to just have that support of being able to ask other people who have been through this, is this normal? Is this not normal? What's the expectation here? So it exists. We try to help each other out.
Well, this was really an informative session. It really helped, I think, for anybody that is starting a bug bounty program, it gives you a smattering of all the things that you should consider. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen. And April, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our community of listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
With that, I will say adieu, and we'll send you off with one of our big security unhappy hour kisses.
If only I had-